Hey everybody, my name is Christy, and my channel is all about the intentional focus on money and mindset to increase joy and happiness in your life to ultimately reduce stress. And I'm going to talk about one of my favorite topics today, and that is side hustles. Specifically, a side hustle that I do and I'm going to be continuing into 2021. And so that is reselling on Poshmark. You will notice I have my Poshmark swag on, but I do want to say this is in no way sponsored by Poshmark. This is my personal journey on becoming a part-time Poshmark reseller, some of the lessons learned, some things that I think would be helpful for someone who is considering a journey on Poshmark. And if you already know about Poshmark and really what you want to know is the hardcore numbers of what someone who is selling part-time on Poshmark could make in terms of a side hustle, I will be talking about that closer to the end, but in the description below, I will put where you can find that. If you want to do a little bit of a fast forward, that is okay. So let's dive in. Talking about side hustles. And there, as you think about your budget and your ultimate financial picture, there's really two things that you can do to change the dynamic of how much money you have to play with every month. One of those, and I've been seeing a lot of videos on YouTube about this recently, is really about how do we reduce our expenses? Our fixed and variable expenses, how do we bring those down? And, really, there's only so much we can do to reduce our expenses. That is pretty limited sometimes in the flexibility that you have. But on the flip side, increasing our income is something that I think a lot of people can have, more excitement about, because that could be limitless. Really, as much time and effort as you are looking to put into a side hustle, you can accomplish some pretty incredible things. And it's something that can get us really excited and I think kind of re-engaged with the world too, and just open up a lot of different opportunities for us, even if that isn't something that we're doing as a full-time job, just something as a side hustle. So there are a lot of benefits, I think, from a mental perspective around engaging in a side hustle of some kind. And there are a ton of side hustles to consider out there. But I was looking for one a couple of years ago that offered what I would say is maximum flexibility. And that is why I decided to dip my toe into reselling clothing online. And that's where Poshmark came into play. So I think a lot of people have been, you think about eBay. That's the first place you think about when you think about reselling anything. But Poshmark started out as a platform back in the early 2010s. So it was like 2011, 2012, something, back then. And they were focused primarily on selling clothing. Now they've expanded that product, the amount of products or different kinds of products you can sell on their platform now. But I still think that people primarily think about Poshmark when they think about being able to find gently used and new clothing at significantly discounted pricing. So it is a great platform, if you are looking at finding some new outfits and clothing from a buyer's perspective, Poshmark is a great place to go. So think about it like your local consignment store, except online. And Poshmark boasts a pretty significant user base, both from a buyer and a seller perspective. So they recently went public, so all of those details are out there, but needless to say, it is a very well-established platform for being able to sell clothing. And when you do your listings on Poshmark, if you do all of your search terms correctly for your listing on your title, when somebody Googles, that particular thing, Poshmark is one of the ways that it will pop up in search terms. So somebody doesn't necessarily have to be on the Poshmark app or platform to be able to find your items. So that's pretty cool. So that's a little bit about what Poshmark is. And like I said, the reason that I looked at Poshmark in the beginning is because I wanted to minimize upfront investment and really make money quickly. And that is really what Poshmark offers, including today. If you were looking at starting out today from scratch, This is one of, I think, the best types of side hustles that can help you start making some cash quickly with very little investment. So let's talk a little bit about what you need. And as you see me, if you see me look down, it's because I am looking at my notes because I don't want to miss anything that I want to be sure to share with you. So from what you need, you don't need to buy anything to get started on Poshmark. You can source inventory from clothes that you and your family no longer wear in your closet. As long as they're, of course, in good condition, they're not rip stained, anything like that, but in good condition, you can list those on Poshmark. And Poshmark they have women's, men's, and kids categories for clothing. So the sky is the limit. Get rid of all of the things in your closets that you and your family are no longer using. And then you need the ability to be able to take pictures of the items. Most people do that, I think, on their phones. So that's what I do. That's what I've done since the beginning. Really easy. Of course, just you need a mechanism to be able to take good quality pictures. You don't need to have anything fancy. You don't need to have a ring light. You don't need to have backdrops or anything like that, although you do see those types of things on Poshmark. Really, you just need a way to be able to photograph your items in nice lighting so people can see all of the details about your items. Then you either need a phone or a computer because you do need to create the listing on Poshmark. So upload your photos and create the listing itself. And then if you have a printer and regular printer paper, that's really all you need to print out shipping labels once someone purchases the item. And then in terms of shipping supplies, so Poshmark utilizes the priority mail from the United States Postal Service to be able to ship. So you can actually go grab envelopes or boxes that are free at your local post office, as long as they say priority mail on them. Those are shipping materials that you can use to ship your items. So you don't need to pay for anything extra in terms of, buying the things that you package your items in to ship them to your buyers. So that's really all you need to get started. Like I said, if you have all of those things in your home right now, your total investment to get started on Poshmark, $0. That's huge, I think. As you think about expanding your business, and if you start kind of reinvesting back into the business and you start watching any YouTube videos on Poshmark, you start looking at different groups of Poshmark sellers, people will talk about thrifting and going out and expanding their inventory, shopping at local consignment stores and Goodwill bins and such. But you don't need to do that to get started. That's something that I would say is kind of a next level strategy as you've already kind of gotten your feet wet and you are comfortable with the Poshmark business. You don't have to spend anything to get started. I would absolutely say that's the way to get started so you can get comfortable with everything around how Poshmark operates, because there are definitely some specific nuances around Poshmark you need to be aware of, and I'm going to talk about those next. So let's talk about some of the pros and cons of selling on Poshmark. So a big pro is outside of the zero investment cost that you would need in order to get started, is that this is truly a business that you could run entirely out of your own home. So you do not need to leave your home to sell on Poshmark. So as you think about starting your inventory from things you already have in your closet, you don't need to go out shopping for anything. At the point where you start thinking about expanding your business and you do want to increase your inventory by thrifting or shopping local consignments, you can actually do all of that online too. I see a lot of sellers, they will do retail arbitrage, or they will sometimes even source on Poshmark directly or other platforms to get their inventory. So you could have it all shipped to you. So from an inventory perspective, you can still get inventory to you without having to leave your home. Of course, all of the components around photographing your items, listing your items, storing your items, you can do that all at home as well. And then shipping, now this isn't something that I do personally, but I do see a lot of people that do this, is they schedule to have their packages picked up by their mail carrier. So I will say a reason I would be kind of hesitant around that right this moment, January of 2021, is because The US Postal Service is still experiencing some pretty significant delays in shipping. That's definitely something that has impacted me as a seller and many other sellers because it delays ultimately getting paid. So that is something to be aware of. And I have seen some sellers talk about the fact that their mail carriers were once willing to pick up their packages and now are no longer willing to do that. So assuming you live in an area that you can schedule pickup and your mail carrier is willing to do that, that's something that, again, you can do this all from your home. Now, I myself choose to go to the post office and drop my packages off. And oftentimes that means I'm going to the post office, 3 to 5 times a week. So that's something I choose to do though, and I don't mind doing it because since my full-time job shifted to working from home full-time, going to the post office might be the only time I actually see other people in real life for days. So I don't mind doing it myself, but many other people prefer the convenience of just scheduling a pickup because, kids, other commitments, time, it just saves them time. So you could do this all from your home. Don't need to do anything, don't need to leave home. And I'd say another kind of really cool benefit to Poshmark is that you can pull your funds out as soon as they're available to you. So you don't have to wait for a specific payday to get paid from Poshmark. As soon as a buyer accepts your package and it says, yep, I got it, the funds are available in your Poshmark account for being able to take it out. And so not having to wait to get paid is, I think, another upside to selling on Poshmark versus, perhaps some other reselling platforms. Okay, so lots of very positive pros in that column. Now let's talk about the things that you really need to be aware of when you're thinking about selling on Poshmark. So I will say by far the one that I think people underestimate, even though they might be aware of it going in, is the amount of time that is required by Poshmark for the social aspect of engaging with the platform. Poshmark it's a philosophy of theirs that they are looking to create a community. And by doing that, they want people who are on the platform, who are selling, and they want them on that platform every single day. Every single day. And what that type of engagement means is that they want you to be actively sharing the items in your closet. So going through the items, there's a little share button and it shares it in the feeds of other people who have liked the item or who follow you. So sharing your items, sharing other people's items as you look at other people's closets. So sharing those items, and then also following other people on the platform. Very active engagement. These things, in addition to your listings, goes into the Poshmark algorithm, and it decides, I think, who it spits out in terms of front and center when people are searching for those type items that would be in your closet. If you want to make regular sales on Poshmark, you have to be on that platform every single day, sharing your items, sharing the items from your closet at least several times a day. And that is, it's something that I think causes people a lot of stress because it takes time, and it's something that isn't a requirement on any other reselling platform that I'm aware of. So when you have less than 100 items, I think, in your closet, this doesn't, it's a very monotonous task, I won't lie. But you could be sitting there watching Netflix and just kind of, sharing your items, and it doesn't take too long. Now at my peak, when I had the most items in my closet that I ever had, I had 750 items. To share 750 items 3 times a day, which is the recommended amount, as you look at anybody who talks about being successful on Poshmark, that takes, an hour and a half of time that I don't have every day to spend being on Poshmark. So as soon as I reached a certain level of income from the Poshmark platform, I started investing in having a virtual assistant to share the items in my closet every day because, like I said, it's a super monotonous task. It takes a lot of time, and it's probably the thing that, as you look across any platform that you could be reselling on, I would say definitely fits in the con category, but it's not something that Poshmark is ever going to change. I don't think they will ever change that because that idea of community and active engagement is such a core philosophical piece of their mission. So there's that. Inventory. So I talked about the fact, of course, that you need to build inventory and have a place to store this inventory. So depending on how many items you have listed, at some point in time, you might reach the tipping point where you have too many items to be able to just kind of go into, a room or a space and just find that item. I reached that, I feel like, pretty quickly. And I started misplacing items, which is super embarrassing and awful when you have an item that sells and then you go to pull it to ship it and then you can't find it. So I had to put in place an inventory pretty quickly once I reached, a certain amount of items. And I would say even over 50 items, you probably need to start thinking about an inventory system. I have 24 bins, storage bins, stacked out in my closet with 30-ish at my peak, 30 items in each bin that is individually tagged. I use those on my listings, but it takes up a big part of my of my garage. So you have to have somewhere to store inventory. If you start kind of spinning this business up and you have a lot of inventory, you have to have a place to store it. So that's just something to think about too. The last piece is around Poshmark fees. So Poshmark takes a certain percentage of the sales price as their fee. And, that's not uncommon. But their fees are on the steeper side of reselling platforms out there. So you see a lot of discussion around it. I actually don't think there's a platform that's higher than Poshmark. If you are selling an item that ultimately sells for $15 or more, Poshmark takes 20%. They have a fixed fee for any item that sells for under $15. I think it's $2.95. Nonetheless, those can be some pretty steep fees, and you have to consider that when you look at your cost of goods to make sure that, once you might offer a discount to offers likers, which is one way that you can get people to buy your things, is you can offer them a private discount. You can offer them a shipping discount. You could offer them both. But once you take those things into account and then how much you actually bought the item for, you want to have a reasonable profit built into that. And that can get eaten up very quickly if you're not factoring Poshmark fees into the sale as well. So that's definitely something that I would consider in the con category, is that Poshmark has steeper fees, and you want to keep your cost of goods low. That was a mistake I made fairly early on, as I was paying way too much for my items. I've gotten way better about that. But I was probably losing money initially once I started buying items as opposed to sourcing from my own closet. So another thing just to be aware of that I would say, sits in the con category, because it's definitely cheaper to resell on other platforms. But it isn't as easy, because one thing, and I should put this in the pro category, so we're going to pop back up to the pro category for just a second. When somebody buys an item from you on Poshmark, Poshmark automatically generates the shipping label and sends it to you. So you don't need to mess with anything around figuring out or calculating shipping costs. It's a flat rate that the buyer pays, and they send you the shipping label, and you just got to print it out and put it on the package. That is definitely a big time saver. So now let's talk about my personal results being a part-time seller on Poshmark. Now, have I ever thought about trying to build this business into something that would be something to replace my full-time income? I think we all kind of dally with that idea when we're thinking about side hustles. But at the end of the day, I have a great job. I'm happy with my job. I make a great income. So this is really now at where I am at in my financial independence journey. It's more of what I would consider fun money, and fun money with a purpose, though, because I'm using this money at this point in time to invest. When I first started on Poshmark 3 years ago, I was looking at having more money from being able to put against my debt. So I've kind of shifted where I'm at in my journey, but nonetheless, it remains the same, that this is money that I am able to use very purposely for financial independence, which is another reason why I am okay right now being a part-time seller. I'm really not grinding at it to be, a full-time seller right now. I would have to do some pretty different things than what I'm doing right now, and that's just not something I'm willing to do. So back in 2019 though, when I was really hitting this hard because I wanted to pay down debt, and that was my main goal at the time, still in a part-time fashion. So I was probably investing anywhere from 5 to 20 hours a week in Poshmark. I had grown my closet, I mentioned, to 750 items. And in 2019, I grossed just over $9,000 as a part-time seller on Poshmark, which, I mean, it's pretty amazing. When I think about my journey and I think about, $9,000, but, there was a lot of work put into that $9,000, and I've talked about quite a few of them already on my con list. But nonetheless, for a side hustle that you can do really from mostly from the convenience of your own home, if not entirely, that's not a bad gig. That can, significantly decrease other debt, or, put more money in your pocket is kind of a great thing. Moving into 2020 though, it was quite a different story. So multiple factors, of course there was this little thing called the pandemic that happened right at the start of the year, or close to the start of the year. I bought a house right at the beginning of the year and closed right before the stay-at-home started here in Minnesota in March. Shifting to working from home full-time for my full-time job, and just other factors, really, it took a lot out of me mentally. And I went into a pretty severe, I'd say, slump just in general. So getting up and doing the grind on my regular full-time job during that kind of initial few months of the pandemic, that was all I could accomplish, really. I didn't have the energy or I just couldn't do it. I couldn't put, anything else into trying to do this side hustle. But I had, inadvertently, I find out now, as I look back on it, I had actually set myself up pretty well for riding out the majority of 2020. I mentioned at the peak, I had 750 items in my closet. I sourced 4 times in 2020. I sourced a couple times at the beginning of the year before the pandemic started, and I sourced a couple of times like in November of last year for new inventory. So clearly I wasn't doing a lot of listing. Really, my business was on autopilot. I was just, continuing to do that daily engagement using my virtual assistant and paying my virtual assistant for that. But otherwise, I really wasn't doing anything else. And I still was making regular enough sales that in 2020, I grossed $4,800 on the platform. I pulled that number this morning. Like I kind of had a sense of what that might have been, but I pulled my sales report for 2020 this morning. I was actually kind of surprised because, like I said, my business was really on autopilot most of last year. So it was, in a way, almost passive income because I had grown my closet so dramatically in 2019 that I could kind of coast through 2020 by doing very little effort. I really did not list a lot at all. I wasn't sourcing, as I said. So coming into 2021, right now, as of the end of January, I have just over 400 items in my closet, active listings. And in January, I sold $293 on Poshmark. Not too shabby. I'm just really starting to get re-engaged, and doing more active listings. I'm still not listing a ton yet, but, I want to keep that number right now about 400. I'm pretty comfortable with that. That means that I am making, fairly regular sales, and $300. I'll take it. I'll take it all day long. That is a little bit more than an extra student loan payment, if I want to throw it that way, or just, again, investing for my financial independence future. And so we'll see what 2021 looks like for Poshmark. I had considered closing my closet near the end of last year, and I decided, looking at other potential side hustles, this continues to be, especially since I have established the basis and I know what to do with Poshmark, continues to be the easiest one, I'd say, for me to continue doing as I looked at, potential side hustles. So if you have any questions about Poshmark, or you're selling on Poshmark, and you'd like to kind of up your game or anything like that, please feel free to put those in the comments below. I already kind of alluded to there are some strategies that I would say kind of take the Poshmark business to the next level. If you'd be interested in, a video about that, let me know in the comments below. And if you would like to see more content like this, click the thumbs up button. And of course, click the subscribe button if you'd like to be notified every time I upload a video to YouTube. So I hope everybody has a great one wherever you are, and I will see you again soon. Bye.